Hi. So today we are going to be working on integer multiplication. So I'm going to start us off by talking about the definition of multiplication. The definition of multiplication says if you have a bunch of groups of equal size and you count them all up. So today we are going to be taking 2,893 times 124. So as we know, when we multiply, we always start at the right side and we take this top number, right? 2,893 times 4. So I drew it out over here because that is basically saying we have 4 groups of 2,893. So that is why we would start by multiplying by 4. Okay? So to start out, we have 3 times 4. And we know that 3 times 4 is 12, right? So as we know, we drop the 2 here and we carry 1. Why do we do that? Well, if we look over here, like we said, we had 4 groups with 3 in it. And we know that 10 cubes equals 1 rod. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we know that this number will make 1 more rod. And we have 2 left over, just as how we drew here. So then our next number we are going to be doing is 9 times 4. Plus the 1 rod that we carried over. So we know 9 times 4 is 36, plus 1 is 37, right? So we know that we write this 7 here, and we would carry 3. Again, well, why do we do that? Because just as we knew that 10 cubes is, just as we know that 10 cubes equals 1 rod, we know that 10 rods equals 1 flat. So if we add them all up, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So that would be basically like drawing 1 flat over here. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would be doing another flat over here. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's like 1 more flat. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 left over. So that is why, so we just bring those to the bottom because we have 7 left over, right? Or 7 rods or 70, right? And so just like we did here, we brought 7 down and the 3 over. So now we are working on 8 times 4. And we know 8 times 4 is 32 plus the 3 that we brought over. So that's 35, right? So we bring the 5 down here and we bring another 3 over. And that is because just as we know 10 cubes equals a rod, 10 rods equals a flat, we know 10 flats equals a supercube. So we add them all up. We count them all up, right? Because we have a bunch of groups of equal size. We count them all up, fitting with the definition of multiplication. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these all make a supercube. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left over, right? So we bring them down, just like we did here. So now we finally have 2 times 4, which is 8, plus the 3 we carried over, which is 11, right? So we put 1 here, and if we carry that up, 11, we just bring it down, okay? And that is because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because we know that, like following the pattern, 10 supercubes should equal a super rod. And then we have 1 left over. So right, we have 1 super rod, 1 super cube left over. We had 5 slats left over. We had 7 rods left over, and we had 2 cubes left over. So that is how we got this number. So now we solved why 2,893 times 4 gives you this number. So because we started in the ones place, now we know we must move to the tens place, which is this 2 right here. Because that is basically like we're saying 2,893 times 20. So to represent that, you might see that people add a 0 here, and like I said, that's because we're taking 2,893 times 20, not just times 2. So to show you that kind of in picture form, that is basically right here. I represented the 2,893 20 groups of 2,893, and so I only drew 10 out because drawing 20 is a lot. So whatever we come up with, we'll just multiply that by 2. But so here we have the 20 groups of 3, right? Because the one place, there's 3 cubes. And so we count them all up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this would make a rod, right? And then we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This would make another rod. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This would make another rod. So that's 3 rods, and because that's 10 groups, we multiply that by 2, so that would be 6 rods. And we know that there are no singles left. So in the single spot, it would just be 0, just as we did here, and we brought the 6 rods that we needed to over. So now we're going to start out with this place. We're going to do 2 times 3, and that equal 2 times 3 is 6, which, like we just drew over here, we had 20 groups of 3, which we figured out was 6 rods, or 60. So that's why we don't need to always draw pictures like this. That's why we just know at this point, when we move to the next place value, we just add a 0, because we don't need to count it all up. We know that we're in the tens place, so we know that we can just fill that in with a 0, because there won't be any singles left. So we know that 2 times 3 equals 60. So now, like we did in the first problem, our next number will be the 9, because that's in the tens place. And it'll be 9 times 2, which we know is 18. And like we drew before, 18, we know that there will be, we will carry 1 over, right? Because that's represent the 10 that we move over from here. And then the 8 left over. So now we will be doing 8 times 2, which we know is 16, plus the one we carried over, which is 17. So we know that there would be 7 left over, and we'd carry 1 over here, right? Because we'd be able to bring equal amounts, like we talked about the 10 rule last time. We'd have 1 here, and we just have 7 left over. That wouldn't be able to make a group of 10. So now we have 2 times 2, which we know is 4, plus 1 more is 5. So we have 5. So our second number is 57,860. So we're almost done solving it. So now we move over another place value. Just as the first time we had 4 groups of 2,893, which represents the first number. The second time around, we moved to the tens place, right? And we had 20 groups of 2,893. So here we're going to be saying 100 groups of 2,893. So just like we did when we moved to the tens place, we added a 0. But because we are in the hundreds place, we are going to add 2 zeros. And that is because I drew, again, this is supposed to represent 100 groups of 2,893. But I, of course, only drew 10 because drawing a 20 groups would be a lot. So we're going to, any answer we come, like we did before, we are going to multiply it by 10 because we are trying to represent 100 groups. So like I had here, 1, 2, we start with the 3, right? Because the 3 singles, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So that would bring one rod over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Another rod over. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Another rod over. So we brought 3 rods over, right? But however, because just like we said, we would multiply that by 10, so that would be essentially like bringing 30 rods over, right? So we just said 3, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So just like that, we had 30 rods. Now, just like we did over here, we have a 0 left over, right? Because all the singles turned into rods. It would be the same. It's going to be the same for the rods. We are going to add these, add them all up. So when we add all these all up, we are going to be able to make even groups of 10 and make them into flats and carry them over. And we are going to end up with 0 rods left. So that is why we drew another 0 here. Okay, so now we know, instead of drawing all these pictures out, we can just fill the places in with 2 zeros, because we know I'm in the hundreds place, there is 0 in the ones place, there is 0 left over in the tens place, so now I'm starting in the hundreds place, right? So we don't have to always draw all these pictures out. We can just ignore that and we can just fill it in with the 0, okay? 2 zeros. So now we are doing 2,893 times 1, or 100, which we have filled in. We have these 2 spots filled in with the 2 zeros. So 1 times 3 we know is 3. Then we have 1 times 9, which we know is 9. 1 times 8, which we know is 8. And then 1 times 2, which we know is 2. So pretty simple. So now we covered all of the place values. So now we're going to go back to our definition of multiplication, which says you have a bunch of groups of equal size and you count them all up. So we figured out all the groups of equal size, and we got these numbers, right? Because we solved 2,893 in groups of 4. We did 2,893 in groups of 20, and we did 2,893 in groups of 100. So we solved that. So now all we need to do is just add it up. So we have 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 6 is 13. So right, that would be 3, carry 1 over. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 plus 8 is 14. 14 plus 3 is 17. So 7 there, carry over. 1, 2. So 2 plus 7 is 9. 9 plus 9 is 18. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 5 is 7. 7 plus 8 is 15. So we put a 5 there, carry 1. And 1 plus 2 is 3. So our final answer is 358,732. And that expresses integer multiplication and why we add zeros, why we can ignore the place value and just add the zeros, and why when we multiply, we have a bunch of equal groups like we did here, and then at the end we need to add it all up. Thanks for watching.